And good evening, everybody, and welcome here to FTF Super Speedway as we begin what's going to be a series of testing races, qualifying races, and then, of course, our All-Star races during the Season 8 All-Star Race weekend. We are getting ready here for the Snickers Showdown Shootout qualifying session. 15 minutes on the clock, and these 30 drivers who are in one-race deals are going to be qualifying to start up at the front of the field. Now, the big thing about this race is there are going to be 30 cars, 30 drivers who are not running full-time in Snickers Cup here this season that are going to be trying to finish inside the top 5 in the Snickers Showdown Shootout in order to transfer their way into the Snickers Showdown. So anyway, our first car is already on track, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was the 95 of Lewis Stevens. So let's go to him right now, the K-Love Ford Fusion out of Phil Parsons Racing. And a number of these drivers I do have a bit of history on, that I have seen them race in another series or in series here in NNSCRA, just not necessarily in Snickers Cup. This one is a new one. I've not seen Lewis Stevenson on track before. I know very little about him. We're going to get to know a lot about him before this weekend is over, though, and Lewis Stevenson's going to be the first one to lay down a lap. Now, this is FTF Super Speedway. For those of you that are not familiar with it, it is a little bit over 5 miles long, and it is a restrictor plate track. As a matter of fact, the official measuring of this track is 5.297 miles. As you see, he just passed the pit road here. It doesn't take him a terribly long time to get around this racetrack, quite honestly. For a track that's over 5 miles, he's just now coming and crossing the stripe, and now he'll begin his first timed lap. The reason that it shows up on the top right, a lap already laid down, is because his pit stall was behind the start-finish line when he left pit road, and for some reason it scores them in that way. But this next time by, when he hits the stripe, will be his first timed lap. One thing I've noticed about FTF Super Speedway is track position can sometimes really come into play. It is somewhat difficult for drivers to very quickly move themselves from the rear to the front of the field. So we're going to have to see here just how important it is for these drivers to want to get themselves on the pole position or up inside the top 5 for the start of the race, so they can hopefully be there by the end of the race. As I said, 30 drivers, 25 of them will just be racing in this event and not going on any further. 5 drivers will move into the Snickers Showdown. And the interesting thing about this too is there is the likely scenario, the possible scenario, that one of those 5 drivers, after moving into the Snickers Showdown, could finish first or second in the Snickers Showdown and make their way into their first ever All-Star race in the Snickers Cup Series. So sure, that's in the back of these drivers' minds, which is why I'm certain they put their crews to work putting together the best setup possible to have the fastest setup possible to be able to be contenders, not only here to make their way into the Snickers Showdown, but if they make it into the Showdown, to make it into the All-Star race. And Lewis Stevens will now come down and make his very first timed lap. Let's see what it's going to be. And it is a 141.188. Actually, that's only 7 seconds faster than his last one was. So apparently he's not producing a whole lot of speed. As a matter of fact, here comes the 96 to his high side, getting a huge run. That is Jackie Tang. And Tang's actually going to go around him. Jackie Tang got a huge momentum boost, picking up the draft off of Lewis Stevenson. So Jackie Tang's going to move into the front of that duo. Jackie Tang is a former Truck Series driver. Ended up driving the number 98 back in, I believe it was Season 7. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Jackie Tang also drove the 84 in Snickers Cup at one point. I'm not exactly sure in what capacity, though. Behind them, there you got another driver that is brand new to me that I know nothing about. As a matter of fact, there's a couple of them up here in this pack. Hendrick Dowley Motorsports bringing out another Chevy Camaro here, and it's going to be Jonathan Zorlin, I believe. Zorlin, I believe is how you pronounce his name. If I'm messing up on people's names, I apologize. You can let me know in the comments if I'm saying it correctly or not, but another driver here that I know absolutely nothing about. We're going to have to see how he does. We know that Chevy Camaro power has really not yet come into its element. None of the drivers from Hendrick Dowley Motorsports have gone to victory lane yet, neither has the Camaro of James Qualls out of ML Racing so far this season. Up ahead is the 14 out of Stewart Haas Racing. Second fastest on the charts right now, and that is Christian Master. Yet another driver that I know very little about. The only thing I can tell you about him right now is he is the second fastest driver on track and doing very well here in this pack of 5 cars as he's now about to get passed on the inside line. Another driver I know nothing about. That's the 42 of Kyle Singer. This is a ride out of Sega Motorsports, which surprisingly enough is a team that only is going to have one driver so far locked into the All-Star race. Kyle Singer is going to try and make the showdown, and Isaac Canepa, already in the showdown, is going to try to make the All-Star race. Coming up on a few cars up ahead of him. Let's cover them. It's actually a couple of teammates out of Roush Fenway Racing. And it's actually 2 drivers that we've seen in competition before. Leah Walker in the 99. Leah Walker actually drove in the Truck Series last season. And I believe she's also a former driver in Mobile Cup Series competition when she drove the number 70. Trying to remember if Leah Walker ever made a Snickers Cup Series start. And for some reason, I'm not being able to pull in it ever happening. I believe she's basically stayed down in Mobile and Truck Series action. And just ahead of her, a driver that's actually running right now in Mobile and Cup Series competition, that's Joe Davis. He drives the 41 AC Delco Chevy Camaro down in Mobile Cup Series competition, and Joe Davis is in the 26 for a 1-race deal here in the Crown Royal Ford. Up ahead there is going to be Dishwasher. This is Chris Washer's cousin from, I believe he's told me it's from Germany. Dishwasher was a rather late addition into this shootout. Dishwasher does not have any previous NNSCRA experience, however, he is taking part over in the NCG Vocaloid World Cup Series, which is being run over on Chris Washer 97's channel. Drives a BMW over in that series, but driving a Ford Fusion here for the newly reformed for one night only Robert Yates Racing. And we'll see how Dishwasher does in his NNSCRA debut. LJ Mills in the number 62. Now this ride actually was in the All-Star race last season. Madison Sieber was the driver of it, but now Michael Norman Motorsports putting it down here in the Snickers Showdown Shootout field, and LJ Mills, a former Truck Series and Mobile Cup Series driver this season, actually is going to be taking part in the Mobile Cup Series All-Star race due to a win here at Charlotte in his rookie season, trying to make his second All-Star race of Season 8 if he can in the South Point number 62. Wow, big pack of cars up here. At the tail end of it is Evan Payne out of Robert Yates Racing. Evan Payne, another driver I know very little about, but there are a couple of drivers here that actually are taking part in Last of Us Late Series competition that are very well known. Kyle Thomas is one of them. Kyle Thomas drives the 5 in the Last of Us Late Series, and he's in a 1-race deal here with Uper Motorsports in a Dodge Charger. Just behind him, Jacob Anthony in the number 30. Now, I believe the last time I remember Jacob Anthony in a NNSCRA event was the last NNSCRA Royal Rumble. I may be incorrect in that, but I believe he took part at least in one of them, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was driving a Red Bull car at the time. And he just moved under another driver taking part in the Last of Us Late Series, Austin Mongold. Mongold is the driver of the 84 over in the Last of Us Late Series, actually having a pretty decent season, but here in a 1-race deal with the Gibbs Waltrip Mayonnaise Racing in the 55 Toyota. Last time that car ever went to victory lane in Snickers Cup Series competition was all the way back in Season 7 in the Daytona 500 when Charles Sanford put that car in victory lane. This pack just lost touch with a couple drivers up ahead of it because of the 17 of Chris Louviere coming on track. Louviere also takes part in the Last of Us Light series. As a matter of fact, it's ironic, the car that's about to come to his inside is the car he drives in the Last of Us Light series, the number 40 Coors Light Dodge. Up here is going to be the 32, and that is Brad Smith. Brad Smith, as I recall, actually does have a previous NNSCRA start. I'm trying to remember where it was, though. I seem to want to think it was in Mobile and Cup Series competition, but I may be incorrect. But one of the Tweenix cars put together for this race weekend. And the number 32 machine right now, 14th fastest on track. Just ahead of him, Nick Romero. Nicholas Romero, I should say, in the 77. That's out of Young Duncan Motorsports. He's right now 4th fastest on track. Yet again, another driver I know nothing about. And then Justin Talampas is going to be up here in Snickers Cup Series competition. He runs in Trucks and Mobile. Kind of ironic, too, that his sponsor in Mobile and Cup Series competition in 38 is Shell and Pennzoil. He's in the Shell Pennzoil Chevrolet for Michael Norman Motorsports. As a matter of fact, there's a number of drivers running Shell Pennzoil here this weekend. Bob Jones, I believe, is in his Shell Pennzoil car. You got the 29 in Shell Pennzoil. The 77 up ahead of him, just passing him, is in Shell Pennzoil. Rather ironic. Cody Hagan is up here in Snickers Cup Series competition now in a one-race deal. Cody Hagan, a Truck Series driver this season. And the best success Hagan has had was, I believe, at the Eldora race, the Midsummer Classic Eldora race. We'll see how he does here in the Toyota out of Gibbs Waltrip Mayonnaise Racing. Austin Weiner, driver in the Last of Us Light series, drives the number 36 360 OTC Toyota, which he's actually racing with right now. Yet again, more irony. We had Louviere racing against his ride. Now we got Austin Weiner racing against his ride that they drive in the Last of Us Light series. And the driver of that 36, as a matter of fact, is Matthew Dallio. Matthew Dallio, who he drives the 10 truck in Oreo competition and the number 12 Ford Mustang out of Penske Racing in Mobile and Cup Series competition. His teammate in that series, Tristan Folks, actually just recently went to victory lane at Dover. Dallio trying to make his first All-Star race here of Season 8. Annie Thomas. Last time we saw Annie Thomas in a NNSCRA sanctioned event was the Royal Rumble. And now she's driving for BK Racing here in a one-race deal in the Borea number 83. Just ahead of her is going to be James Tyler. He takes part in the Last of Us Light series, driving the number 20 machine, now in the number 13 out of Germain Racing for one race deal. And there's some skid marks up here. Someone ran into some trouble. I don't know who. Looking at Jake Baskinger. Baskinger, a former Truck Series driver, former Mobile and Cup Series driver, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe he's raced in Snickers Cup Series action as well in the 99. But Jake Baskinger back in the 98. Right now, 21st fastest out of 30 drivers. Cowtech's only driver is going to be Amadou Diallo. We know what success he's been having as far as consistency in the Last of Us Light series, and now he's making his NNSCRA Snickers Cup Series debut. Nick Alton drives in the Mobile and Cup Series in the number 20. He's in the number 45 for Yuprim Motorsports. Betty Johnson. It's been a long time since we've seen her in an NNSCRA sanctioned event. I believe she may actually have not been in NNSCRA competition since the Royal Rumble. And Robbie Noser Jr. making his NNSCRA debut. First time we've ever seen him in an NNSCRA sanctioned event. Looking real quickly to see if there's anybody I may have forgotten here. There's one. Riley Houston in the 18. Another driver I know nothing about. I do know we did have a Rod Houston in NNSCRA competition. I don't know if there's any relation, but if not, it's the first time we're ever seeing Riley Houston. Harrison Ponder in the 7 out of Michael Norman Motorsports. Ponder, of course, drives the 13 in the Last of Us Light series. And I believe I may have hit everybody. Oh, Lyndon Wright. I missed Lyndon Wright. Lyndon Wright is actually going to be taking part in the Mobile Cup Series All-Star race because he's locked into that. Trying to race his way here into the Snickers Cup Series All-Star race. As I believe practice or qualifying is indeed over. Let's see who the fastest car on track was, and it's going to end up being Jacob Anthony in the 30, who was at the tail end of this lead pack for a lot of this qualifying session. He will start on the pole. It looks like Chris Louvier will start in second. Third is going to be Evan Payne. Fourth place is going to be Riley Houston. And rounding out the top 5 is going to be Nicholas Romero. So will it come down to where these drivers start to where they're going to finish? I don't know. Whatever the case, though, it's going to be quite an interesting event nonetheless. We'll show you the official results here from this qualifying session. Oh, looks like they actually, this is their final time lap. And it looks like Justin Talampas and LJ Mills just replaced Riley Houston and Nicholas Romero inside the top 5 now. But the front row remains the same. Jacob Anthony with a 134.4 and Chris Louvier with a 134.5 will start on the front row. As you take a look at the official qualifying results for the Snickers Showdown Shootout. And we'll scroll down here and show you the final 2. Both James Tyler and Harrison Ponder with 138s. And apparently they were not able to find drafting partners on track or something. But they'll be all bunched up when we take the green flag for the start of this race. I can guarantee you that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this qualifying session. If you did, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the crew today. We continue on with our All-Star Race weekend when we will have our qualifying sessions for the Oreo Open, the Mobile Open, and the Snickers Showdown. So be tuning in for those. And then, of course, we'll have our practice qualifying sessions for the All-Star races as well. And then we'll get down to it with the running of the Snickers Shootout, or Snickers Showdown Shootout, then the Oreo Open, Mobile Open, Snickers Showdown, and then the Oreo Mobile and Snickers Cup Series All-Star races. So hope that we'll see you there. You've been watching a production of the NNSCRA Offline Racing at its best. Bye.